I see my purpose here as being a torque converter, a catalyst, a bridge between what you've heard so far, what you're going to hear the rest of the next 4 days, and getting you to process, distill, and integrate it in the right way to get the maximum effect. I'm trying to give you what I think will have the most enduring, positively haunting, transformatic effect. I'd like you to look at this not as a presentation, not as a session, but really as a business intervention and as a business actualization sort of a process. And if I can accomplish a fraction of that, I'll be happy. The title is How to Harness the Strategic Leverage in Your Business. Okay, I got a question, and I want you to think about this. Are you unintentionally, unknowingly, what's the other word? Unfortunately, limiting, restricting, impeding the number of buyers you attract and sell, the size of the transaction you do when you sell, the number of additional products and services they buy with that transaction, the number of times they repurchase. You don't have to write this down, just think about it. The number of referrals they generate, the number of ways you could monetize it. Is it your fault, not theirs, that you're not getting the result you want? Your goal in business, a couple things, not all going to be on the slide. Either you work hard for your business or you figure out how to get your business to work harder and harder and harder for you. You work hard for your business, you got a promotion, you got to drive all the time, nobody wants to buy it, there's no leverage in it. You get the business to work harder for you, you've got an asset everyone will stand in line to buy later in your life. Your goal is to achieve maximum performance from everything you do, assets, activities, investment, interaction, now and forever. Okay, Tony talks about passion, but how do you get it, keep it, grow it, harness it, then leverage it? Then leverage it and its enormous power. We're going to explain it in a few minutes. I'm a finder of hidden assets, overlooked opportunities, underperforming activities, undervalued relationships, underutilized distribution channels. I help people make what I call the money connection, connecting the dots that have always been right there in front of your eyes. Foundation of Abraham 101, and this is a very simplistic summary. Focus on the business of exponential growth, always. Examine and evaluate the performance of everything. I've had the good fortune in my life. Tony's a great reference example. I've helped like 400 major experts all over the world. And in order to help them, you have to understand, they didn't come to me for their methodology, but I had to understand their methodology to be able to monetize it better, to value it better, to revere it better, to monetize it better. And one of the people that I had the good fortune of meeting, and Tony was influenced by them, I believe, was W. Edwards Deming, the father of industrial optimization and process improvement. And he said, you look at all the elements in a business. Usually he did manufacturing throughput, but I looked at it in the revenue side. You look at all the different impact points, all the different leverage points, all the different processes that are affecting your revenue, and the first thing you do is you examine them and evaluate how are they doing. I've also had the good fortune of working for the largest multivariable testing agency in the world. It's called Qualpro, and they get $1 million contracts. They look at 500 variables interacting at the same time, and they found out that 25% of everything most small, medium businesses don't do anything. 25% are actually negative, and the rest of them are terribly underperforming. Well, if half of what you're doing are either holding you back or doing nothing for you, and you can just basically know that by learning to examine and measure and evaluate and identify the processes, you're way ahead of the game. Your goal in life is learning to be unbeatable and irresistible. You want to know why? Say why. Why? Because almost every business out there is... I'll do it for this side too. I know it's wasting time, but it has graphic relevance. Think about it. I'm trying to... What I said to Tony... and it's funny, Tony, you still there? You know how you had the coals? I was going to do, and it was not really making fun of you, I was going to do like 100 feet of Jell-O, because the concept was it's not that hard. Serious. It's a good metaphor. I didn't come to make you laugh. I came to transform your businesses. You're not making mockery of me behind my back, are you? Okay, so that's your goal. Because you're probably beatable and resistible and don't even know it. So you got to look at how to get more upside leverage out of everything you're doing. And you can't do that if you don't know what you're doing. I know it sounds axiomatic, logical, oversimplistic, but I can devastate most every one of you if we do some interactions later and you'll go gulp because you're not doing the obvious. Areas of leverage, hidden assets, I already talked about that. Also, internal and external OPs. What are OPs? Other people's. You leverage off of other people's assets, associates, advertisements, belief system, buying power, cash, connections, collateral, databases, goodwill, hard assets, knowledge, IP, leads, markets, and I'll get into this later, but it's just a ton of stuff that every one of you has instant access with. You just have to liberate yourself to understand it, recognize, and believe that it really can be harnessed for you. You got to learn how to test. Why? Because one approach over another can be profoundly different. One advertisement, same space, same medium, over another can pull as much as 21 times different. One way of going, we tested, for example, I had a furniture store, a big one, $40 million. We tested different ways of greeting people at the front door. They were spending about $200-300 grand a month getting people to come in the front door. We tested 33 different ways just to greet people. That was one of those processes, those impact points that they'd never identified. What do you say when they come in? Instead of, "Can I help you?" "No, just looking." We came up with one that tripled the number of people walking in the front door that converted. Same amount of advertising costs, same amount of traffic, 300% more initial sales. I'm not even calculating the residual repurchases and referrals. You want to know what it was? And I'm not going to tease you. It was, "And what ad brought you into the store today?" Now, why would that be it? You don't have to care to know. You got to test suppositions, hypotheses. However, what it turned out was when they answered it, it gave the interviewer, the salesman or woman, authoritative control of the transaction, because you could engage. "Oh, you came in for the bedroom suite. Is it replacing? Is it new? Are you moving?" And all of a sudden, you got an authoritative, more of a leadership role. We tested headlines. I've seen prices, $19 out pull $17 by 500%. I had a client in the old days when gold's higher now. I used to be big in the gold business, and I had a client that was running ads in the Wall Street Journal, and the headline was 2/3 bank financing on silver and gold. And they were making money enough to keep running the ads, but the purpose of a headline, we'll get into them later because I'm going to teach you, is to denominate the biggest, most powerful, specific, self-serving benefit that the intended recipient or prospect wants. And that was just a declaration of static facts, 2/3 bank financing on silver and gold. I tried 5 different headlines, Wall Street Journal, same quarter-page ad. One headline pulled 500% better, and I got 25% of the profit. I made $500,000 in about 9 months for 30 minutes worth of work, and I'll tell you what the winning headline was because I'm not trying to be just secretive. It was back when gold was only $300 and silver was $6. Remember, the first one was 2/3 bank financing on silver and gold. The winning one was, "If gold is selling for $300 an ounce, send us just $100 an ounce, and we'll send you all the gold you want." And it was the same thing, but it was denominated from the benefit side to the end user. And that's what you have to think about, the benefit. So you got to test. You can test prices, you can test benefits, you can test guarantees, you can test incorporating credibility. Credibility can be client testimonials, people like a Tony Robbins saying great things about me. You can test all kinds of things. And when you test these factors, and there is a hierarchy, and I didn't bring the hierarchy here, it was an oversight, but headline is the biggest thing to test because the headline is 80% of the impact, and the headline has many ramifications. It certainly is the opening cluster of big oversized words in a magazine or newspaper ad, but it's also the first phrases you hear in an electronic ad. It's the headline in your website. It's the subject line in your email. I've changed subject lines and quintupled the response. And sometimes response isn't the thing you're looking for. It's quality. Sometimes it's source. A different source. You could maybe have a much higher unit of sale and a much higher back end, meaning residual purchase. And I'll get into that later, but you got to test a lot of variables. And I could do, and Tony knows this, and I'm not trying to tease you, I could do 5 hours on any one of these and it would not be a disservice, but I'm trying to give you context. Items that you should be leveraging and maximizing for your business. And I wouldn't write these down. I would just stay engaged, because if you start writing them down, you're not going to get the full intention of my sharing during this intervention. You should test the ads you run. They can be sales ads or recruiting ads, because you'll get different quality, different quantity, different media, different propositions. The promotions you do. The sales efforts you make, prospecting, point of purchase, order department, customer service, appointment setting, initial sale, upsell, downsell, resell. You can test the leads you generate, online, offline calls, emails, letters, referrals. You can test the sales communication you use. Believe it or not, how many people in here do anything where you send a brochure out? Well, most people aren't even astute enough to add a sales letter with it. And the analogy I use is they'll just send the brochure with a card or something. Think about a salesperson. If you sent a salesperson to a prospect, let's say that I was in Tony's big, glorious office and he's sitting there looking dominant and I'm trying to sell him. I'm going to give you the graphic analogy of what sending a brochure by itself is like. It's like me throwing a brochure, me being a mute, and I don't mean making fun of a mute, throwing it on his desk and going, The real opportunity is to add a sales letter that advocates the benefit, the advantage, the relevancy, the demonstrable future, what it'll be like for them. And when you add the right sales letter to a brochure, you can double or triple or quadruple or quintuple the number of sales. But that isn't even the full magnitude, because that doesn't take into consideration the additional sales, the residual sales, the referral sales, the other product or service ancillary revenue. It's just so profound, and I hope that even though I'm talking fast, this is intriguing to you. Because they said, Jay, you better be intriguing or we're not going to let you come on after lunch. Shuddering. The influences you have access to, industry influences, compatible businesses who have the same market. For example, anybody here in the home improvement? Well, gosh, guess what? I don't know. Anybody here own a house or a condo? Let's try that one. Okay. Anybody who owns a house or condo ever improved any finite portion, a kitchen, a bedroom, a roof, a backyard? Did you ever notice when that was done? Gosh, you looked at how beautiful that looked compared to the rest, and you thought, oh gosh, I better do the bathroom, or I better do the closets. Well, do you think maybe you could do joint ventures with a lot of people who have one piece of the puzzle because they've got somebody who's they've already gone past the point of just contemplating, they've spent money, they already are ripe, and if you look at most of those people, they do nothing with their prospects who don't buy, they do nothing with their buyers who buy one static thing like a roof or a garage door. But I've put people together and we've made fortunes. It's figuring out how to leverage those kind of compatibilities, and I can go on and on and on, but success stories. Credibility comes from firsthand peer confirmation, not your peer, but your client's peers, your buyer's peers, your patient's peers. And most people don't use it, and they've got it. And when they get them, they get warm fuzzies. And like Tony knows this about me, I have 12,000 or 15,000 testimonials. And when we get warm fuzzies, we thank them, but we never even use them or save them, because I don't deal in warm fuzzies. I deal in bottom line specific, comparable, contractual. I mean, where you contract against the before and after. And you can do that, most of you, with an interviewing process that hopefully I can demonstrate with some interaction after lunch. Marketing activities, you can test all of them and make almost all of them do better. If you run the Yellow Page ads, headline, proposition, I've seen the Yellow Page ads be made, I don't know, 10, 15 times better. Also, if you got a competitor that's going out of business and they didn't have a bad reputation, they were honorable, you can buy their number and service it, and that can be an incredible revenue stream. Direct mail, sales letters, mail drops you do, website, all these things are things you can test. And you can almost improve every one of them. And while you're going to say, well, I don't do all those, maybe you should. But if you don't, if you do 3 of them, or 2 of them, or 5 of them, and you get each one to improve 10%, and you remember Tony's example yesterday of 10%, 10%, 10%, 33%, 20%, 20%, 20% is incredible. If you double 3, all of a sudden it's like 400 or 500% greater revenue. And if your overhead's fixed, it's almost all bottom line after incremental expenses. That's pretty cool. Do I get to stay on? Okay, thanks. You can test PR. Most people don't even use PR. I mean, that's the most hilarious thing in the world. You can use PR locally. Forbes wrote and said I was the real thing. Tony's had incredible PR. I've had USA Today write 2 articles on me. Investors Business Daily write 2 articles on me. Success wrote 4. Honest to goodness, almost none of them got me a penny's worth of business. But guess what? When you incorporate those in your marketing against your local or your regional or your national or international competitor that has none of them, who do you think looks more impressive? Who do you think looks more trustworthy? Who do you think looks more desirable to do business with? Who do you think is going to be more irresistible than resistible, more unbeatable than beatable. I'm just trying to show you a couple little things you can do. I mean, seminars. I have changed banners at people's booths. People say, Acme Amalgamated. Who the hell cares? People walking through a trade show want to know what's the payoff to me to visit. I've changed banners to denominate a benefit. I've changed opening dialogues to have a 30-second articulation of the exact benefit in them, and I've gotten many times more people to come in and more quality people, and many times more people who came in to buy. You've got that kind of leverage. Salesforce, boy, if you don't, and Andy Miller's on later and Chet's going to talk, I don't teach this, but I greatly revere it. The easiest, the most critical thing anybody in business can do is have everybody in your organization trained in consultative advisory selling. It's the cheapest, the most immediate, the most enduringly impactful thing you can do. Most people, when they get trained in selling, they get trained in products, service knowledge, and in familiarity with their marketplace. Consultative selling is the ability to guide people for their best interest. It's the ability to engage them in an authoritative way. Everyone should be taught that. Your phone people, if you're not online, your customer service, your accounts payable, receivable, your everybody, and certainly your selling people, that's immense leverage. I've never seen consultative selling fail to immediately impact and sustain sales 10 to 500%. It costs nothing. Nothing. You can get somebody for a couple $1,000s a day. You can buy a book for $30. You can buy a CD set. I don't do it. I'm just saying you should do it, every one of you. Endorsers. I have done over $2 billion of sales for myself and my clients by finding people who already spent years and years, tens of thousands, millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, gaining the trust, the respect, the goodwill, and the affinity of the same market I wanted. And I was able to access their credibility through endorsement. When I decided I wanted to go into the seminar business, and Tony was one of my benefactors, I did $100 million in 2 years and spent $300 grand to do it. Because I was able to leverage off of Tony, who was able to leverage off of Guthrie Ranker, who spent some number of tens of millions of dollars to get him credibility that he was able to use for his seminars, and I was able to use that for mine. And it wasn't, I mean, you've got to be able to be ethical. You've got to deserve the endorsement. You've got to perform. You've got to stand behind it. It can't be manipulative. But there's so much external leverage out there that nobody even recognizes. And you can use it locally, nationally, internationally. We just did $3 million in the last 3 weeks online. And I can't even turn on my computer. Swear to God, everyone knows it. I couldn't do my PowerPoint. It's all screwed up. They were yelling at me in the background. I don't read my emails. I'm the last dinosaur of technophobia. But we go to everybody who's already spent, you know, all these young Turks that have all these email lists, and all these guys love me because I help them and they endorse me. And we got like 40,000 leads in the last month for one program, and we got 1,000 people to give us $4,000. And it's not as hard as you think. You just have to leverage better. For word of mouth. I mean, how many people in this room are in a business where 10 to 100% of your business emanates from referrals? Stand up. Remain standing if you have in place in your company at least one. And if you've already been exposed to me, it's not fair. At least one formalized, strategic, ongoing, systematic, 24/7 referral generating system. Okay. Remain standing if you got 2. 3. 4. Look around the room. Now, almost everybody is, you can all say it. Almost everybody has sat down. If I had time, I'd interview how much of that your business was referral, and usually it's going to be 50,000, 500,000, 5 million. And yet you spend all your time, your effort on ads where nobody knows you, on emails and on websites nobody knows you. We've studied, because I've done 465 different industries, we've studied 93 unduplicated ways to generate referrals systematically. Systematically. Now, I'm going to show you, you're either going to get confirmation of my business savvy and realistic ability, or you're going to see that I'm a sham, because I'm going to, what Tony says, I'm going to hallucinate for a minute. And in my hallucinatory state, I'm in HS, as we say in abbreviology, I'm going to hallucinate that a referral-generated buyer, number one, buys quicker. Number 2, negotiates less. Number 3, buys larger units. Number 4, buys more combinations. Number 5, buys more often. Number 6 is more interesting and enjoyable to deal with. Number 7, buys longer. Number 8, refers more people. And number 9, costs nothing to acquire. So what's wrong with this picture? That's how I think superlogically. Does that make sense? And that's perhaps how you should also. I don't need that. What I need at the end is not a standing ovation or claps. I want you to go out and do something with it and use what I talk about as a reference model to examine, evaluate, and incorporate the elements you learn from everybody and do something with it. I believe there's 3 kinds of people in business. People who make something happen, people who watch something happen, and people to whom things just keep happening. And you got to decide where you fit on the continuum. And if you're in the former, you want to make more things happen, bigger, faster, and more significantly and enduring. If you're in the middle, you want to question why, because it's so much more work to stay as a voyeur or a spectator up in the stands than it is to be on the field playing. It's much more exciting. If you're a victim, there's no time for it. The world won't commiserate. They won't empathize. I had a bunch of setbacks in my life, and I remember crying and thinking, oh, how terrible. And then I realized nobody cares, but they also don't care if you dust yourself off, jump back in the ring, make yourself $1 trillion, become the leading edge source. It's all up to you. Selling systems. These are just things you can leverage on being strategic. So your goal in life is to be strategic. Let me go back for a minute. 95% or more of all small, medium business owners never reach their goal. You know why? They don't have goals. They have hopes, they have dreams, they have abstract, delusionary, amorphous, hopes and desires. Goals are very specific, and I'm not trying to, conflict with whatever Chet or Tony or all the other speakers. I'm just giving you my meaning of life, and you're welcome to discount it up to 100%. You will not offend me. Nobody should be in business if you're not strategic. I'm going to define strategy. I think I got it sort of a little ass backwards. It'll be a little later in the presentation. But you should never do anything that's tactical, because tactical is inefficient. There's no leverage in it. All it does is, if you're lucky, get you through the month, and then you can start again. You should never do any sort of weapon, which is a tactic, unless it's going to deploy, integrate, advance, and enhance a bigger master strategy. I'm going to give you a bunch of examples in a few minutes. I just got to see where it is. So, J. Abraham 101. First thing I do when I look at a business I'm working with is usually they're screwy the way they generate revenue, but I don't try to stop it. I first try to maximize everything that's working, because I don't want to screw with the delicacy of their enterprise. So I try to figure out what it is first. I do that analysis of all the processes. Then I see how they're performing, and then I try to to improve the performance. I do that to stabilize it and to free up incremental windfall revenue I can use then to multiply, to add more pillars, which we'll get into in a minute. We're ahead of ourselves. But there's a very pragmatic way, and that's how you should look at it too. Even if you're all screwed up in what you're doing, make whatever you're doing do its best first, so you got stability and you got the incremental and the discretionary capital to test some new things. Because as cool as I make it sound, and they're not that hard, it's like, anybody here play golf, tennis, anything? I doubt the first time you tried to do it, you were masterful at it. Even though I'm trying to simplify everything, the first time you try something, you're probably going to have to just course correct. And so if you maximize what you're doing and you make an extra $5,000 or $10,000, until you get everything right, you'll have the discretionary money to experiment and not be in dire straits if it doesn't execute perfectly. So first thing you maximize, then you multiply. Now, optimization, highest and best use. Anybody here a commercial real estate person? Okay, you know what highest and best use means, obviously. Okay, if I were trying to sell a 2-bedroom, 800 square foot, ramshackle, beat up 1-bathroom house on 4 prime acres across from Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, and I brought an appraiser in, a commercial appraiser, he or she would not value that at what it was worth as an 800 square foot house. He or she would say, well, what would this be worth converted to its highest and best use? Shopping center, high rise, parking lot, whatever. You've got to look at yourself in context of your business and say, what is my highest and best use? What is the highest and best use of my time, my opportunity, my my capital, my human capital. And you can't do that if you don't expand your horizon of what's possible. Optimization is a derivative of Deming. He says you got to first of all know your options and opportunities. You don't have to know all of them, but if all your window of relevance or possibility is limited to just what you've seen in your industry, then you couldn't possibly be doing highest and best use. You could be doing lowest and worst, and you probably are. And I don't mean that to be, arrogant or condemnational. It's just a clinical observation of enough companies in my life that that's the case. So you want to be highest and best. You can't do that till you examine and evaluate not only what you're doing, but what else is out there. So, and you got to be able to define what you're doing. Like, I'm trying to get clients. Well, what are you really doing? I'm trying to target the best quality sources. I'm trying to reach them in the most efficient, cost-effective, direct way. I'm trying to make the greatest proposition to them that I can. I'm trying to evoke a response for them where, in essence, they will solicit me, so the psychology will be better. I'm trying to then reduce and lower the hurdle rate so it'll be easier to start a relationship than not. I'm trying to start a relationship that I can evolve and migrate for a lifetime relationship. I'm trying to move them up the food chain by adding value. I'm always trying to serve them as their most trusted advisor, and on and on and on. And I'm trying to put in perspective what business is all about. I hope this has value to you. It's very simplistic, but I don't think most business owners, small and medium, grasp what you're here for. And if you don't grasp what you're here for, you can't render it. And that's probably why you don't get the result you want from the marketplace. Innovation. This is very important. My definition of innovation is not high-tech or low-tech. It's bringing greater benefit or advantage to the marketplace that they desire, recognize, and want from you. It can be high-tech, but it can be low-tech or no-tech. But innovation and optimization are polar opposites. Optimization is getting the absolute maximum you can out of what you've already done and what you're doing. Innovation is making everything you've done obsolete. And the problem is you've got to be able to master the integration of both, because if you don't innovate yourself, this is a quote from Peter Drucker, you can rest assured your competitors will do it for you, to you. So you've got to be able enthusiastically, and I hope what I'm sharing is not daunting, it's liberating. It's not hard, but you just have to know the game you're playing. And I'm trying to give you a fast crash course contextual connection between Tony and oh, by the way, I'm so flattered. Greg, are you still in the room? Greg Link, where are you? I'm so flattered I come in behind Greg's partner and just a dear gentleman, Stephen M. R. Covey. I think what he's got is the last bastion of true leverage in business, true no-cost leverage. And if you didn't take a lot from that, shame on you. He's a wonderful man, and his message is so critical. And I'm so proud to be teaching you, sharing with you, doing an intervention with you after him, because it's a great context. So innovation, no, he's just a wonderful man. I love his message, and you should too, because trust is the key. Trust is everything. Your people will do more for you. Your prospects will buy faster, buy more often, stay with you, tell more people. Your vendors will move mountains for you. The media will when I call the media, they take my call. It's that's what you want. Trust. Innovation. So you got to learn to innovate. Innovate is not just technical, although if technology can bring about a benefit, and it's all about them, it's not about you. One of the biggest fallacies in business is the concept of value, service, quality is denominated in your own mind, but it has no relevance to the client, to the buyer, to the prospect. You've got to always live in their mind. It's not about you, it's all about them. Okay, funnel vision versus funnel vision. Marketing and innovation. This is a quote from Drucker, and I agree. Marketing and innovation are the difference between mediocrity and making millions more over the lifetime of your business, and maybe millions more every year in your business. But I would add strategy, because strategy, the difference between being tactical and strategic is all important. Let's define strategy. A definition. Strategy, the difference between strategy, planning, and tactics, doing. Strategy is the science of planning and directing a large-scale operation. It's the major long-term goal. It's the end result, not when you die, but what's it all about? What are you trying to do besides just make money? This is distinguished from tactics, which are just the mechanisms that keep advancing or deploying it. Okay, I'm going to give you a bunch of examples pretty fast, but these should blow your mind. And if they don't, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm going to start with The one that says cubic zirconium because it so clearly denominates, because I may not have enough time for all of them. I had two friends. Call one friend Sam and one friend John. Sam was an incredibly brilliant copywriter in the direct mail advertising business, in the mail order. He was a tactical thinker. He got the idea when cubic zirconium, simulated diamonds, came into being, of creating a company called the Beverly Hills Diamond Company. And he created a proprietary named stone called the Beverly Hills Diamond. It was a 1-carat cubic zirconium, and he wrote just a killer full-page ad in the LA Times and spent, I think, 30 grand and ran it, selling a 1-carat stone for $39. And I think his ad was 30 grand, and it brought in, let's call it 38,000. And after credit card discounts and refunds, he made about $3,000. And he was a tactical, momentary thinker, and he got frustrated and folded his tent and got out of the business. Good ad, but he just didn't make much money. Friend 2, who did I say his name was? John, was not as good a copywriter, but he was a brilliant strategist. He saw what friend 1, Sam, did, thought, that's really cool. Sam missed the boat. So John wrote his version of an ad. This is back when Tiffany's was at its peak, and Van Cleef and Arpels was at their peak, and he called it his Van Pliss and Tissany, and he created the Van Pliss diamond. He did almost a model. It was original copy, but his was nowhere close to as well written. He spent 30 grand on a full-page ad. I think with everything factored in, he got like $25,000 or $27,000 back. After everything, he lost 6 grand. But when friend 1, who's friend 1? Sam, sent his, he was so tactical and front-end loaded, he just sent his stone in a piece of crappy cardboard with nothing there, and it was pretty tacky. Friend 2, who was strategic, sent his in a beautiful jeweler's case with a letter and another component. The letter said, we're so honored and pleased that you favored us to buy our Van Pliss diamond. Before you take it out, we're going to forewarn you of something wonderful and something maybe a little disappointing that's not our fault. The wonderful is you're going to see it's more fiery, more brilliant, more extraordinary. It's going to just bedazzle the begollies out of you. But when you take it out, you're going to think it's smaller. And it's not that we cheated you. It's the reason we get that brilliance is because of the density. It's got more weight per whatever. And it said when our clients see the extraordinary superior brilliance, almost all of them want to come back to us and buy 5-carat and 10-carat. Then they got to take it to the jewelers and they got to figure what to do with it. And as a courtesy, because we're so appreciative you had enough blind faith to give us your first purchase, we want to give you trade-in allowance. We're going to give you double trade-in allowance. And besides that, we've taken the liberty of presetting a bunch of 5 and 10-carat Van Pliss brilliant stones into 14-carat, 18-carat necklaces and earrings. And we've checked with what the quality retailers would charge, and we think it's too much because we can do it ourselves. We are about 50% of what they would be, but we want you to really check it out for yourself. So if you wish to exchange and get double credit and purchase anything in the catalog that's enclosed, we won't consider your purchase binding and committed on your part until you've had the luxury of taking it to your favorite jeweler for 30 days to see if it in fact isn't 50% of what they would have charged you. Friend 1, Sam, did, let's call it 38,000 and made about 3 and quit. Friend 2, who's he? John. But John's what? He's strategic. John lost $3,000 and made $25 million the first year. That's the difference between strategy. Does that make sense to you? And most people in this room are tactical. So what I said to Tony is, I'm all about a real simple concept, and I'm going to repeat it, and if I don't get all my slides done, I'll apologize, but I want to make a very important point. You really don't have to do a lot of things better. You got to stop doing the things that are hurting you. And I said it's an analogy of like pretend, I hope I didn't say this because I have a very low memory. It's like being in an airplane and taking off and getting up high, but having the flaps not go all the way up or down or whatever they're supposed to do, but being safe enough that you could fly. I don't know if that's, I don't know aeronautics, so let's presume that you could do that. Well, it's going to take forever to get to your destination. It's going to be a nightmare for the pilot. It's going to burn an enormous amount of fuel, and it's not going to be very pleasant for the passenger. You can just make the damn flaps go where they're supposed to. You're going to go faster, straighter, easier, more efficiently, more enjoyably. Well, think of that analogy contextually in your business life, because all you do is stop screwing yourself up. And if you just do that, you're going to go forward. Does that make sense? I know it sounds mundane, but I swear to God, it's just, it really is that simple in the first stage. Isn't this fun? So, okay, Colonial Penn. So Colonial Penn was started as this life insurance company, and they wanted to go out and they wanted to get big organizations that they could sign up to do affinity insurance programs, and they were having the toughest time until one very strategic person said, and I got a concept, I call it the Indiana Jones School of Business. Anybody ever see the first Indiana Jones movie? Was it Raiders of the Lost Ark? Remember when he was being chased down the bazaar by the bad-looking guys in the fezzes or whatever, and he ran down the alley, and there was that 7.5-foot giant spinning the, what are they, sitars or whatever they're called, and you thought it was, the Indy was a goner, and after about 2 minutes he thought, screw that stuff, and he took his gun out and shot him. Well, the Indiana Jones School of Business says anytime you want, you can change the game. You can change the game. It's up to you. As long as it's ethical, honorable, equitable, you can change the game. So this guy at Colonial Penn said, let's change the game. Let's just start our own. I mean, we're spending millions of dollars, and Lord knows how many salespeople, and Lord knows how many presentations trying to get a client. Let's create our own association. And they created AARP as a captive organization. And they made billions. That's being very strategic. I was in the gold and silver business big time. And my client, we took from $300,000 the year that I'm very proud of this. I met him to $500 million, 18. And it was an upward market, so it wasn't altogether that great of a feat, but it was pretty significant. But we did it by being strategic. I looked at all the other companies out there, and they were just trying to sell people a wad of gold or silver or rare coins and then leave. I said, well, if we're comfortable not making as much right now, but gaining their trust and guiding them, we're going to have much more. And most of these guys had one sale average. You got to know what the average unit of sale is, and the things Tony told you about last night, what they're worth, the lifetime value, all the economics, so you can maximize it. But we took a strategy that said, first thing we want to educate. We're not going to let them buy till they get educated, and we're sure that it's right for them. Then we're not going to let them buy a lot, even if they want to. We're going to make them buy first gold because that was the safest, then a little more gold if they wanted, then silver if they wanted, then if they wanted to get in rare coins, very, very, very ginger, so that we were looking out for their best interest. I went to all kinds of experts out in the field, including experts that loathed gold, that loathed rare coins, and I put together the most balanced case, and we educated them, and we would buy books that were on it, and we would invest in them, and nobody else did that. And we ended up getting an average of 7 or 8 sales per client. It would go from $5,000 to $15,000 to $30,000 to $50,000 to $100,000, and we made an effing fortune. And most of the other guys came and gone because we were very, very strategic. National Taxpayers Union, similar to Colonial Penn. I have a couple of friends who are brilliant copywriters, and they used to do fundraising for nonprofits. And they got a share. I don't know if it's still legal, but it used to be legal. You could pay out almost the first donation because it costs that much to get funds, because most causal-based organizations, they make their revenue, they generate their operating income by subsequent redonations and long-term donors, and they got to get started with somebody. So these guys were great at getting started. They could write a causal letter and articulate a voice for the organization, do great things, but they lost clients not because they were unsuccessful, because the clients would get mad about how much money they made, even though that was the deal. It was all speculation. So one of the partners got the wild idea of being Indiana Jones and said, screw it, let's start our own. So they started National Taxpayers Union, so they'd have a captive client that would never fire them. And they got modest fees for running it, but they basically had a contract with it to do all the marketing. My seminars, I'm skipping Richard Vigri, he's very similar. My seminars, when I started, I told you about what I did with people like Tony, but I didn't tell you the strategy. I get $5,000 an hour. Don't do a lot of private consults, but it's like $40,000, $50,000 a day. Depends on where I do it and whether I travel or they travel to me. So the first thing I would do to a list was have the endorser send a letter out promoting my $50,000 a day consulting. And if I was lucky, I would get back maybe the cost of the mailing. Then, about 4 weeks later, a letter would go saying, so many people were so intrigued but couldn't possibly afford it, or didn't believe it could be worth it, but were intrigued enough, that I've persuaded Jay with the economy the economics of scale to do a big seminar, and it's only $5,000, and he doesn't need the money, so you can pay over a year and get your payoff now and pay it on results. Then, after that was done, we would, at the seminar, offer people who were really serious and significant a $25,000 interaction where I would restructure over on the stage, do a real hot seat for 2 hours. And then the ones that were really serious, we would evolve to a client for a couple of $100,000 or contingency. And then we'd go back to the list that didn't buy, and we'd offer them the home study for $2,000, 40% on terms. Then we'd pull all those names off, and we'd go back to the people that didn't and say, so many people really wanted to, but it was still above their goals, and they wanted to get a familiarity. So I talked Jay into letting us sell this book for $400, and then we'd go back the other way. But it was very strategic. Does that help you? The point is, most of you aren't very strategic. You're tactical. And just by starting to think strategic and not doing anything that doesn't advance and enhance the long-term gain that you're after, then you got a great advantage. Okay, I'm going to get into something that is the foundational premise, the philosophical strategy, the strategic philosophy, the underpinning, the secret sauce that I use for everybody I ever work with, every ad I ever write, every sales structure I ever create, every culture I ever try to change, everything I live by. And it's called the strategy of preeminence. And I'm very proud of it. It was taught me by a person who used $1,000 that he started a company on his kitchen table, and he went to 450 million using this. I was able to learn it. I did a trade with him where I traded 5 days of my time. He let me interview him, his people, his managers, and I took all the distillation and sort of put it into an ideology that I have not necessarily improved upon, but just expanded for my own application. There's a lot of stuff here. You're not going to be able to write it all down, and I don't know that I'm eager to give it all to you that freely, because this is what I get paid the big bucks for, but I want to share it with you ideologically, because if you just grasp the ideology in this, it'll transform your life and everything. It's going to sound, it's not airy-fairy, but it's the foundation for everything you should be doing, and it should be the overriding, not just the screen, but the discriminator that you impose on everybody that you take in the rest of this and everything Tony has said before this. And I'm going to have to read it myself because my eyes aren't that good. Okay, so the foundational, here's a couple first ones. You want to be seen in your market as, you want to consider yourself the ultimate leader. A leader of your marketplace, a leader of their decisions. You don't want to just be a seller of products or service. Okay, you got to take a position. People are begging to be led. That is human nature. But they want to be led by somebody they trust, and that they trust has their best interest at heart. That's as fundamental to your advertising, to your selling, to your positioning, to your branding, everything. Okay, so you got to be a leader. You got to take a position and have a point of view. You can't be led by somebody who has no beliefs. You got to be strong in what you believe in for me. Hopefully I'm coming across strong in my beliefs for you, and I feel that I am, and I hope that it's coming across with a trustworthiness that you want to rally behind that for yourself. That's what I'm doing to you. I want you to be able to do to your market, if I'm doing it. And if I'm not, Tony should take me to task. You want to have a higher causal purpose. It's not about making money. That's not how you achieve a lot. It's about making people's lives better because you're in it. Preferably the marketplace, but also the people you work with, people that you pay. Most people in life focus on the wrong thing. They fall in love with their product, their service, their company. They want to be the fastest growing company or the most prestigious or the biggest or the Inc. 100. I've helped 12 Inc. 500 or Entrepreneurs of the Year. But the reason we got them there was not trying to be the fastest growing business. We didn't fall in love with our business. We fell in love with our marketplace. We live for making their lives better off because our product, service, people were in it, supporting them, protecting them, enhancing them. It's a big distinction. You want to have enormous empathy for where they're at. You want to be able to feel how they feel, appreciate the realities of their world. You want to understand, respect, acknowledge, appreciate the way they see life, because that's the realm you're dealing with. You want to create clarity for them, clear focus and certainty that you've got something and you understand their problem, and this is going to get them the outcome they're after. I believe It's only a matter of time before you'll be doing compensated business with anybody and everybody you want, so you shouldn't wait until money changes hands to start making contribution. That's what all your competitors do, and that's why they're marginalized, commoditized, and inferior to where you will be. Second, I never call the buyer a customer. I don't even think a doctor should call them a patient. Let me tell you why. We're in a world where there's two factions trying to marginalize you: the consumers and the competitors. Consumers have a lot of knowledge. They'd like you to basically have no distinction so they can pay you a lot less and work you against the competition. The competition doesn't want you to be superior. And if you call me a customer, in essence, unbeknown to you, you are acknowledging that you are a commodity. Go to the Webster's Dictionary, look up the literal definition of customer. It's somebody who buys a commodity or service. Even patient is somebody who gets treatment. It's not distinction. A client is somebody under the care, the well-being, the authoritative leadership of another. It connotes more of a fiduciary responsibility. That's the role you want with your clients. And it's a much more liberating and fulfilling role than being a vendor of commodities and services. You want to be seen as their most trusted advisor in the area of your specialty for life. For life. Even if you only got a one-time product sale, you want to be there for everybody who's important to them forever. And you've got to evoke that because it's real to you. You have a moral responsibility. You have an ethical responsibility not to let somebody buy less than they should, in less quantity than they should, in less combination than they should, in less quality than they should, less frequently than they should. Not because you're not going to make as much, but because they're not going to get the outcome. I got to give you an example because I'm being abstract. Anybody who knows me knows that I have a lot of indulgent peccadillos. And one of them is I get my hair cut every 10 days because I don't want it to look like it's been cut. And when I go and I pay double because I want the person to give me the best attention possible. But I was talking to him a couple of years ago and I said, well, what's the average frequency people come? He said, it's all over the place. Some comes 6 weeks, some comes 8 weeks. And I said, well, whether it's man or woman, you couldn't possibly look your best, evoke your best confidence, be as attractive, handsome, sexy. He said, no, but he said, that's the way they are. And I said, well, you're letting them. You're doing them a disservice. You should basically realize that if 6 weeks is optimal, you have a moral obligation to explain to them what it's costing them to not have the stature, the authority, the sexiness, the handsomeness that they want, the confidence. And as long as they understand the price they're paying, it's their prerogative. But if you don't take the liberty of giving them the chance to have more, then you're stealing from them. And he started doing it, and first of all, I looked at what his average was, and let's call it, I don't remember, I'd done so many things. Let's say they were coming on average 6 times a year. We got it to 9, which made him a lot more, but it made them a lot. So like, you're your best when you look your best, you feel your best, but that's the concept. Is that clear, or is it too abstract? And it translates to everybody. Okay, any friend of your clients is a friend of yours, so you want them. Referral generation is an ethically programmed process. Most people get them organically. They come, they go, they're erratic. If you say to me, look, Jay, you're in our family now. As a member of our family, anyone who's important to you is important to us. We always stand ready to counsel anybody you want to refer to us about whatever the expertise is. And whether they buy or not, we want to give them our best reason, best research, expert opinion. At least they'll be able to make a well-based judgment. If we are favored with the transaction, all the better. But I want you to always know that you can refer anybody to us anytime. If they're important to you, they're important to us, and not if they buy or not. And that preemptive move alone can double or triple or quadruple your referrals. Do you understand that? And it's just liberating. I mean, I am so blessed. I live in this glorious, like, rarefied, stratospheric place of joy because you're contributing. You're playing a game of life in competition, and like the whole world's a 3D movie, and you got the only pair of glasses, and I'm basically trying to hand it to you in 3 hours on a silver platter and let you refine it with all the other people that you... And it really isn't that hard, but it's a shift in attitudinal focus. It's all about empathy. You got to feel for the other side. It's like you don't really care, in all honesty, and I mean this with the utmost of respect, why I'm here. You don't care how I feel. You don't care about my agenda. You don't care if I'm terminal. You don't care if I've got a toothache. All you care about is I sure as hell better give you one heck of a benefit and a payoff in the 3 hours, or you're going to be pissed. And that's human nature. It's human nature. You can't fault human beings for being human, but you have to appreciate, respect, and empathize how they look at life, and you'll be able to harness ethically and equitably and extraordinarily enrichingly all the opportunities that abound. Does that make sense? Cool. Okay. You want to always sell a role leader. You're not a vendor. You're not a retailer. You're not a doctor. You are a leader. You're selling leadership, a point of view, a perspective. You want to say to me, I feel the way you feel. I know what you're struggling with. You even want to put into words, I'm probably going to get ahead of myself. You want to be the first person that verbalizes what people are feeling. We used to do all these seminars back when Tony started endorsing me, and one of the first things we did at them, for 4 hours we'd go around the room and say, tell us your biggest frustration, challenge, issue, problem. And our job was to re-articulate it in the most elegant, specific, tangible terms. And when you do that, you would watch their facial expressions in their bodies just change, because it was liberating, because for the first time somebody gave them something to get their hands around. It was no longer as daunting. Your job is to do that for your market. And even what I'm doing now is probably liberating, because I'm trying to put it into simple, not easily transactable, but a simpler understanding of what your purpose in business is. Sort of exciting, isn't it? And all you should be doing is what I'm doing for and to you, for and to your market. It's really that simple. And it's really cool. So there's a big difference between giving information and giving advice. You don't want to give information. People give advice are valued and priceless and prized and respected and coveted. People give information are rejected and marginalized. Telling people, here's what you should be doing about it and here's how. You want to be specific. You want to be very specific. Focus gives people clarity. Clarity gives people power. Power gives them an understanding. Understanding gives them certainty. Certainty gives them trust. And without trust, people won't take action. I'm sure Stephen M.R. did a lot better justice to that. I did this years ago, but that's what it's all about. You got to give people views they can trust. It all goes back to leadership. Most people don't trust the system. So you want to not play to it, but reinforce that if you've got an alternative view that you really believe in. Alternative view, non-mainstream. You're not being told the whole truth. You don't have to work 20 years to make a living. You can change it, as Tony says, in a heartbeat. You can really do it. You got to be a person who stands for something as an advocate, a champion of the marketplace, of a better life, of an easier life, of a safer life, of a more enjoyable life, of a more enriching life, of a more enjoyable life, of a more fulfilled life, or whatever you stand for. People don't know what focus is until they've made it, so you got to help them. Does that make sense? Connectivity, Mary talked about making the money connection. You're connecting the dots one at a time. And unfortunately, and I don't tell stories well anymore, but there's a story about the top Electrolux vacuum cleaner man, and he had a procedure he'd go through, and he'd go in the morning and knock on doors and make his presentations, and he'd do 50 of them a day, and he'd get 20 appointments. He'd go out to the 20 appointments, and half would be there. He'd make his hour-long presentation. He would sell like 5, and he made $200,000. But he decided to be so efficient, he wanted to cut the process down to only a couple steps, and he did, and he put himself out of business, because it's like trying to bake bread and do it in 10 minutes without using a yeast or anything else. There is a process that you can't really deny. And if you're going to connect dots for the picture for somebody, you can't go from dot 1 to dot 6 just because you want the sale. You've got to go through a gestation process. That's why being strategic is so important. You have a pipeline that's always advancing and migrating, and you're not hurried. You're very much nurturous and attentive and progressive. You're making you the audience. You. Like, this isn't about me. If I'm doing this correctly, most of you are getting the feeling I'm talking to you. He's talking to me. That's what you want to achieve, and it's not manipulative. It's not diabolical. It's not mirrors and smoke. It's in your heart. It's the focus. It's called the you attitude, with you being your marketplace, your prospect and client. It's bringing people in sequential, as I said, and advancing, because they're not all at the same place ready. And you want to be nurturous because you're playing a game for life. When you're strategic, it's not about just a static transaction. It's about having them for life. And even if you have only one product right now, you can have a lot more. And I'll give you a real quick example because I want to blow your mind, not with me, but with what's possible. When I went to Australia, I used to do a lot of things in Australia. I'll give you two stories from Australia. They're both the same. I found a company that only sold $295 seminars. They also sold books. That was their whole deal. And I said, well, you should be selling $5,000 and $25,000 seminars. I never thought about that. And I showed them, because I did the first one with them, we made $1 million on the back end. It was a gap that they weren't holding. And all of a sudden, they started selling that, and their business model changed totally, and they started making millions of dollars a year. I had a client in Australia years ago that was in the enterprise software business. They ran ads in trade magazines, and they'd get tons of leads, and they'd sell 2 or 3%. It was very expensive, $50,000, $200,000 a piece. And I looked at the business, and I said, do you realize that no small business owner has the time to respond unless they're interested in it? It's just that your product is either too expensive, too complex, too many bells and whistles. Why don't we find a lesser priced product that may be a better entry or a better for all the people that didn't buy the 97% that you spent all your money on? And I went out and I sourced a product that was more meat and potatoes, and we didn't pay them a profit share. We licensed the right for a royalty, 5%, to do it to our market, and we ended up making more money from historically the names we didn't sell than we did from our own business, and our whole business model changed. But you're playing a longer-term game, and right now I don't have the time to figure out your master strategy and redo your business model. Hopefully the other speakers will do a lot of that for you. They're very fine at what they do. I'm just trying to change the way you look at the whole realm of being in business and the whole concept of leverage and strategic leverage and harnessing it. You got to have a hopefulness. You know, my wish for you is not that I'll entertain you. It's that I'll challenge you to so transform your thinking about your business and to so actualize what you hear from everybody else and so transactionalize and go out and really change the way you do business and you relate. You got to have a hopefulness for your market. And the way to do it is what Tony calls future pacing. You want to take them into the future, and you want to see how much better their life is because you are in it. Let me try to use an example. Any realtors in this audience? And times are really hard. But the best way to shift your strategy is not to think about selling a house, but to think about by having them trust you to guide and advise them, and you move them into a better place. They may get a house that's going to appreciate a lot more for them, which means they're going to have a lot more wealth and asset value at retirement. Their family is going to grow and have a richer, safer, happier life. Their kids are going to be in a better community and probably, have greater opportunities. And you got to think beyond the tangible and the commodity things, and it's a point of projecting yourself into the future. We look at this. Who are you communicating with each time you have interaction? Ads, emails, website, booth at a trade show. What problems are we going to deal with today? And one of the things I put on notes that I lost already was that your job is really to be a problem solver. The bigger and the more significant problems you solve, the more you'll be respected, acknowledged, and rewarded. Life is all about solving problems, and most of the problems we solve haven't even been fully verbalized yet. So if you can become a great person at verbalizing the problem, and you're the only person that can put great words into it, it becomes implicit axiomatic that you can solve it. You solve it, you're richly rewarded for doing it. You want to ask yourself, how can we have the most positive impact? And this is a relevant. You're in your home, you're in their life, you're in their business for a little while. What can we do right now is going to make the most impact? The message doesn't have any value unless it makes an impact. I am trying profoundly to impact you, to make a haunting, sustaining, enduring impact, not just to disseminate static, linear information. You've got to do the same. People have to recognize your advice as a solution to a problem they feel emotionally as well as rationally. You have to provide them with the reassurance and the motivation to use that. You'll notice that I keep explaining parenthetically in between the issues how easy it is. And if you just stop, I'm trying to encourage you. And I'm telling you what I'm doing so you can see how applicable it is and how effective, hopefully, it is. And if it's ineffective, I apologize. But if it is effective, hey, model me. Use it. Apply it. Prosper, because you'll help people have richer lives and businesses. You want to ask yourself, if I were on the receiving end of what I'm doing, what I'm saying, what they're reading, what they're hearing, what we're presenting, what we're showing at our booth, would I want this? Why would I want to take advantage? What's in it for them, the end user? We have a so what question we ask. So what? Like when I ask people, well, why people do business? Well, we're the dependability, quality, reliability. So what? I mean, that's the most amorphous. It's like water flowing on the back of a duck. If you conceive of your business as interacting and enhancing people's lives instead of selling products and services, it's just so much more. You look forward to Monday mornings. You look forward to talking on the phone. You look forward to presenting to clients and prospects. You look forward to your service people going out, because your whole context of reference of how you fit into the commercial cosmos has changed so massively. Most people think, what do I have to say to get people to buy? It's really not that. It's what value do I have to give? What benefit do I have to give that is so irresistible, so appreciated that they couldn't say no? People always pursue their well-being in a logical, rational way. Show me, don't tell me. I am trying parenthetically with lots of examples to show you. Because we learn best, and Tony taught me this years ago, through examples, through reference examples, through metaphors, through similes, through case studies that can make it easy for people to understand and relate to what you're trying to show them, or what you're saying their problem is, or what you're saying the solution will be like. A good example, I have something called the unique selling proposition. And I used to explain it in very cool, esoteric terms until Tony one day took me behind stage and went, smack, 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 boom. You're making it hard. He said, why don't you just say this? Because I was doing it really esoteric. He said, why don't you say, hey guys, you know how when FedEx came out, they said, if it absolutely positively has to be there by 10 FedEx, you know how Ava said, we're number 2, so we got to do more and try harder. You know how endorsements said, if you're dissatisfied with anything for any reason, any time in the future, you get your money back, a refund, a replacement, no questions asked. You know how Domino's said fast, fresh, delicious pizza delivered to your door in 30 minutes or less, or it's yours free. Well, that's a USP. And I said, wow, that does make an easier way for you to grasp it. So use that for your own advantage. He helped me a lot. Thank you for that. If they don't take the action themselves, no, seriously, if they don't take the action, okay, you never want to draw the conclusion for them. You want to build the case. You want to make the point. You want to let me make the decision myself, because there's more power in it. And if they take the action, there's power in it. If you take the action, you're manipulating me. It's a subtlety, but very important. Any claim you make, any claim I make, if you don't agree with it, like remember I was talking about my hallucination about referrals? If I said, oh, they're a pain in the ass, oh, they're hard to close, oh, they're no fun, oh, they hammer you down, oh, they never come back, and you knew otherwise, then we would lose our trust, wouldn't we? Well, it's a very bad example, but it isn't a horrible example of what I'm trying to say here. You got to advocate not my perspective or yours, but the prospects. People think, I'm tired of being controlled. You want to be their liberator. Think about all the liberators in every country. Oh, they were hoisted and foisted to president, and they got all the girls, and they got, if they were a guy, and they, no, but I mean, don't you want to be the liberator of your market? That's a much cooler place to be than a seller of products and services and commodities and marginalized stuff and drudgery and not making any money and loathing Monday mornings, I think. You want to reduce the hurdle rate. We talked about being resistible, being irresistible. I'm not going to get into it, and not to be titillating. It just takes hours, but I deal in something called risk reversal. And it's about taking away all the risks, making it easier to say yes than no. And there's all kinds of risks in life, in business. Anytime two people come together to transact business, one side is always asking the other, either implicitly, explicitly, verbally, non-verbally, subtly, subliminally. One's always asking the other to take most, all, or more than all the risk. more than all the risk. Anyone ever bought software for your business, installed it, it didn't work, you couldn't bill, couldn't collect, didn't know how much money you were there, your life was a nightmare. It was a lot worse than just the $10,000 or $20,000 you spent for the software. Your business was screwed. Well, you've got to be able to identify all the tangible, intangible, emotional, and other risks involved, and systematically be able to preempt, overcome, protect, or eliminate them, so it's easier to say yes than no. And there's an art and there's a science to it, and maybe if I have time to do a lot of interactions, I'll try to demonstrate it, but if not, you should know that. And,
Jay, why don't you give one of those right now?
Is that God? Okay, I'll give you one. All right, so let me make it real simple.
To you.
Okay, I'll give you an easy one. I'll give you an easy one. We sold, I'll give you a couple of them. When we went into the seminar business, we didn't say, send us $5 grand or 15 grand or 25 grand. I did 3 kinds of programs, and we own your money and tough stuff. You're in. We said, first of all, we said, okay, we know how valuable this can be for you. You don't. We have the advantage, so we want to invest in you first. We didn't say it like this exactly, but here's what we said. We said, number one, we said, we want to send you a bunch of the stuff that I normally sell for $1,000, and we'll entrust it to you, no strings attached, it's on loan. If it doesn't blow your mind, you've done nothing. Just send it back or we'll sell it to you. Number one, if you like it, then let us know the kind of business you're in, and we'll put you in touch with other people in those kind of businesses I've helped. So you know I've really done it. Large, small, retail, wholesale, rural, whatever. Then we said, okay, then we're going to send you this incredible collection of grounding and preparation material, and you're going to have 30 to 60 days to immerse yourself in it. And if it doesn't blow your mind, and if you're somebody with a prejudice towards action, if you put it to work and it doesn't already pay the money that you're going to pay us, then send it back and cancel. If it does, we're still not going to consider your participation binding on your part. We're going to give you 2 choices. You can pay now and get a discount, or you can pay over 12 months and pay afterwards. But whichever you do, we're not going to deposit or bill your credit card until 2 o'clock on the second day of a 3-day program, or 2 o'clock on the 3rd day of a 5-day program. In essence, we have invested, if it's a 3-day, we've invested $2,500 of experience in you before you have to make a commitment. If it's a 5-day, we've invested $12,500 in you. That's pretty irresistible, don't you think? And we got 12,500 people who took us up on it in about 2 years. Let me give you another example. Let's say, and again, I'm not going to be as accurate on this, but let's say you're in the vitamin business or supplement business, and you've got some supplement you sell, and you sell it right now with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And so your ad says 30-day money-back guarantee, and it does okay. Well, how much better do you think it might be if instead, in your selling literature, you said, look, we know what an impact this has made on the lives, the bodies, the minds, the energy of people. You don't. So we won't consider your purchase binding and committed on your part until you've taken the product for 30 full days, and all we're going to ask in exchange is this. Just do it as we ask. Take 1 in the morning before breakfast, 1 right after lunch, 1 right after dinner. And then if you can honestly say within the first 30 days that, number 1, you're sleeping better than you have probably since you were a baby. Number 2, you're waking up refreshed and totally focused. Number 3, your stress level is reduced at least 70 or 80%. Number 4, people in your family and your business world are remarking about how young and good you look. Number 5, your level of anger and intensity is lower. Number 6, your sex life's better. Number 7, you're losing weight. We won't let you. I mean, does that help, Tony, or do you want more? Does that help you guys? I mean, that's leverage. I'm talking about leverage. I've changed. I mean, we have a hierarchy of leverage factors, and one of them is the guarantee. We have a collection of 502 case studies we give people when they come to our programs, and there are things that just one leverage point changed a business 40 to 400%, and 25% of them they just made better risk reversal, better guarantees, better lowering and that made it easy for 3 or 4 or 5 times more people to do it. I have in one of my testimonials a guy who was a founder of FedEx. There were like 5 founding founding principals besides Fred Smith, and he was the guy who figured out the spoke and hub, and he gave the culture. He's a good friend of mine, and he retired and he became a consultant, and he was doing tech groups. Anybody know what tech groups are? Where you pitch 12 people and you try to get a client. He was traveling the country, and he was getting like one client every 6 or 7 presentations, and I taught him a way to re-articulate his proposition. And he went to people and he said, you know, mine is really simple. If we don't produce a result that your whole staff agrees is, and he had some kind of quantification, within a year, I'll give you back the money you've paid, all the expenses. And he closed Harley Davidson, he closed the biggest hospital. He started closing 3 clients a presentation. He had to stop doing it because there were 6-figure clients. But there's so much, I mean, all this stuff, believe it or not, Tony talked about the 3 ways, and I'm telling you, you have within any business 25 to 50 leverage impact points. Each one can be leveraged, can be enhanced, can be multiplied 10, 20, 50, 100. Does it make sense? I mean, I'm not trying to be titillating. I just can't go possibly through the multitude in 3 hours. But it's just so cool. He has so much opportunity. I'm sure there's some wonderful people that'll go deep on a lot of the cool things later. People worry about whether they stand out. We all want to be special. Your clients want to be special. They want to be acknowledged. They want to be special. I had a massage last night. I was so tired. And the woman was a very nice Brazilian woman who came here with somebody who was doing a show like 30 years ago, and I didn't ask her, but I think she got divorced, and she supported her daughter, and her daughter was at Otis Art School, and she's working to send her there, and she's worried about her, and I wanted to take a nap. But it was so important, because I don't think anyone ever really acknowledged her. And I stood up, I was trying to fall asleep so I'd be good for you guys, but she wanted to talk, and I don't think anyone ever listened or acknowledged her. It's very important. We all want to be heard. And we want to know that people listen. We want to know that they felt and they cared. It's terribly important. And it's very liberating because you feel like $1 trillion. It makes everything totally different. And there's an intangibility about it that makes you very, very, very preemptive and incomparable when it comes to market competition. But it's a real feeling. I said, don't make me buy. Help me do this. Give your clients a chance to buy more if it's going to serve them better. If buying from you is the wrong thing to do and they should buy from your competitor, you have a moral obligation for that. But if buying from their competitor is the worst thing to do, not because he or she's a rotten so-and-so SOB, but because they're not going to serve them or protect them or contribute to them, then you've got a moral responsibility to guide them so that any decision they make well-reasoned. Does that make sense? This is very powerful stuff. Honest to God, very powerful. Seemingly, it's disarmingly simple, but it's very powerful. If the concept is too difficult for most people to buy into, you got to give them examples like Tony's asking me to do for you. Use reference examples. Use metaphors. Use similes. How many people here are very religious? Nobody? You want to go out whoring and drinking tonight? If you look at the Bible, any Bible, all the points they make are parables. Pardon? Pardon? Spiritual. Okay, spiritual. If you look at any spiritual doctrine, it makes its point. It compels you to grasp it using metaphors and similes or parables. If it's good enough to move incredible feats and horrific things all over the world, it's probably good enough for you to move more of the marketplace, don't you think? Just think about that. You want to see yourself as an agent of change, a creator of greater value and benefit and advantage and enhancement in the lives or the businesses of your clients.